Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the television show The Boys. Now, we are only going to be talking about season one. We're going to try to stay away from things from season two and season three, which has just started, which is up to like 4 episodes at the time of this recording. But we're going to try to keep it to just season one, specifically talking about episode one, but potential spoiler alert for the rest of season one. But so if you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out, then come back and watch our show. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So I wonder, Cheryl, for you, was The Boys kind of like Invincible for you? Were you aware that The Boys was a comic book, like graphic novel or comic book before you saw the show, or did you find out about the comic because of the show?
I found out that there was a comic just now.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, then that answers that.
Good to know. But yeah, it's a lot like the like Invincible. So, and I think they both came out around the same time-ish. So I was pretty excited about both of them. And I actually, we did an episode for Invincible, and I kind of wanted to do The Boys alongside it, but we decided to do The Walking Dead instead because it was the same writer. So, which is also a comic, The Walking Dead.
A lot of comics, right? Yeah, so it still works.
But yeah, so I didn't know that it was a comic. But I think that it's pretty cool, actually. I enjoyed it a lot because, well, like you know me, I like it when we lose people in shows. So once people start dying in shows, I get really excited, and then I get disappointed if they come back to life, because that's like. You took it away from me to make it hurt. Don't give it back. So, no takes backsies. But yeah. So it's one of those where people die. It's pretty graphic, which I can't say I'm a huge fan of that, but I don't mind it either. But I just like how it's another twist on superheroes, and this one felt even more so like the most realistic, so to say. If superheroes were ever to be real, this feels the most plausible.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I avoided the show for a while actually when it first came out. I didn't start watching the show until after season 2 was out. And that was partially just because I wasn't in the right place to watch the show. I had heard about like the tone and like the themes of the show, and I think this was around during the same time that Negan was making his rounds on The Walking Dead, and The Walking Dead was just kind of feeling miserable for the sake of misery, and I was kind of just not in the right place for that. So when people would tell me, "Oh, you got to watch The Boys," I'm like, I'm not interested in watching some guy who's a jerk basically get his way and have everything be terrible. Like I have no desire to like experience that. I'm good. There's other things I can do with my time. And so I spent a lot of time away from The Boys, despite the fact that the creator also did another one of my favorite television shows, which is Supernatural. So eventually, though, I don't know why. I think a lot of times with these shows, I just watch them on a whim. And one day I was just like, well, I have nothing else to watch. I'll go ahead and throw it on. And I found myself surprised by how much I was enjoying it or getting pulled in. And there was still, like you said, like the gore and the violence. Like I didn't like the fact that like how his girlfriend died. Like that really bothered me when I first saw it. Um, but what they do with it and where it goes, all of that like really started like clicking for me. And that's one of those things for me, is that like if you can make death matter or make it mean something in a show, then that goes a long way. And then I love the character of Butcher because I love Carl Urban, and the way he plays that character, it's so interesting to me because I normally don't get to see Carl Urban talk in his normal accent in movies. When I saw him in like Chronicles of Riddick, and when I saw him in what
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, yeah, in Lord of the Rings. Like we've seen him in a couple of things at this point, Thor Ragnarok as well. But yeah, like
I
so
forgot
hearing him.
he was in Star Trek.
Oh, he was in Star Trek. What?
He played Bones, and he was phenomenal. He really captured that character. But anyways, that's a
Nice.
tangent. We can talk all day
No,
about him.
I mean it's he's a really good actor. He's really good, and the way he plays Butcher, I think that he's the perfect actor to play that role. Oh, Dredd, that's the other one I was thinking of. But anyway, he's just like really good in that role, and so a mixture of his character and then seeing when the team actually comes together and the reason they do the things they do, and like the idea that they want to take down these superheroes, and even the idea, like you just said, like it's kind of like it feels like a realistic take of what superheroes could be like. They're monetized, they're superstars, and because they're superstars, they're kind of jerks. We know people who just have a lot of money who aren't necessarily, they're not super powered, but they're still jerks, and the only thing they have is a lot of money. So that these people have a lot of money, and they can basically do whatever they want. So in a way, you're like, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think everyone would be evil in this world. Not every superhero would be bad, but you know, this is believable. So I can get behind this. And with Homelander, with evil Superman, essentially, like I think that you create an interesting dichotomy of the most powerful person in the show is evil, and the people that we're following are not superpowered. So now all of a sudden, just by the nature of the show, you're wondering how can they beat him?
Yeah, so you're literally reading all of my notes, and I have nothing left to say. No, I'm just kidding.
Oops.
But no, like I 100% agree. And like that was one of the things that like really stood out to me. As maybe not so much how are they gonna beat him, although that question did come up to me the first time I watched it. But for me, like I think the first time I watched it was a lot of shock factor and a lot of like what's gonna happen, how are they gonna do this, like they're two regular guys, and you know eventually you know more regular people get involved, but and then I mean we gave a spoiler alert. Yeah, I can talk about this. Then they end up getting an actual hero, Starlight, involved in helping them try to dismantle Vought, which is the company that is behind all of the heroes in the first place. So I thought it was interesting to see that there was just a regular woman, and by regular I mean she's just human, being in charge basically, and then she has a boss. I'm not sure when we see this, but she has a boss, and her boss is a brown man, and he's also not a super. So it's kind of cool to see that we have like a woman and then we have a brown person being in charge. But then it also has this other aspect of like just how the heroes are actually puppets, and it's all about money, and it's all about capitalism and how they manipulate circumstances to continue their business. And that's not very far off from how things work today, like in real life. It's just, you know, put in a fantasy world situation. So that really is what I took away from it, more so the second time watching it than the first time.
Right. I mean, one of the other things that fits with what you just brought up is the fact of how they try to saturate the market with superhero stuff, which is interesting because the original comic book was meant to be like a satire of superhero comics, and it really does feel like The Boys is meant to be a satire of superhero movies, right? So like all these superheroes have movie deals and movies being made by them or being made about them, and the Seven are very much a whole Justice League type feeling, but the world is really steeped in the film side of the superhero like phenomena, and that very much does coincide with how our current world is moving forward with all the superhero media that we get on a regular basis every day. And the other part that also is interesting about all that is the fact that within this world, with all these characters that you have existing and doing whatever they want to do, the fact that these characters are basically above the law. They're basically they A-Train literally runs through a human being and doesn't even have to give a real apology. And then they try to get Huey to sign something that says, I won't talk about this, but hey, we'll give you money. But he's sitting here just like, I was holding my girlfriend's hands when this was over, and there's nothing that's going to bring her back. But that's the whole thing about this world. These guys are superstars. They can't be touched. And that's another form of their power. It's not just their superpower, it's the power that they just have from status. And so, like, Huey getting this call to arms when Butcher shows up and it's like, hey, I need you to do a thing. He's clearly using Huey, and manipulating him, and you see more about this from Butcher as it keeps going. But the fact is that Huey still wants to do something, because doing nothing feels like he's not doing enough.
Yeah, for that I think it's more about just how he found someone that he could relate to. Like, he knew kind of what Huey would be feeling. And I don't remember. I don't know if this is season 2 stuff. But it's clear that he lost his wife. So it's like almost like he was waiting to find someone who lost someone else that they cared about, so that he could have the opportunity to try to like bug the place. And like, obviously that didn't work out very well, but then that kind of all, like, it's just a lot of dominoes hitting each other, I think, or like, you know, one thing happening after the next, and it all starts with Robin dying, and that making it so that Butcher meets Huey, and then him getting convinced to do the bug failed, and then Translucent ends up going after Huey, but that is, you know, sorry, the bug didn't work out, so that's why Translucent was there, because he kind of saw everything happen while he was watching everything.
Just standing in the bathroom like a creeper.
Right. And that's what kind of gets Huey into trouble, because if that had all went well, then he probably would have never seen Butcher again. So
he wouldn't have.
Yeah, so that's kind of like it's all dominoing, and I think I kind of like that, the way things were happening, is because what we're seeing was affecting the next thing that we see. So I felt like that was important, because it made me feel like everything bless you.
Thank you.
It just made me feel like everything that I'm watching is important. And that's really good to have when you have a show or a movie, is when your audience feels that they can't miss anything, because everything is there for a solid good reason.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing that one of the other things that I really liked about the episode is that Butcher makes a Matrix speech and completely does it with the wrong order of which pill does which. But it's just so funny to me, as someone who loves the Matrix, just hearing him talk about like the red pill or the blue pill. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you have that backwards, buddy. And then he even realizes it while he's saying it. It's just like, you know, just go in and do the thing. Don't be scared. And I was like, all right. So that's the other part about it that is interesting, is that, like, even though it is very dark and it's very violent, it's also pretty funny. It's got some pretty funny moments that like happen because of the delivery of the actors that they have playing these characters. And it makes it even more enjoyable, because you're not just sitting there in misery. And I think that's also part of what kind of hooked me in to stay in was the fact that it wasn't simply a show that's about drowning in misery with only the bad guys winning. Like, you have the good guys making small strides. Like, they struggle, but they make small strides towards success, and there's a laugh or two along the way. So and it doesn't feel overdone. It feels like it's natural to the show. So it's pretty fun. That was the other thing I wanted to mention too, by the way, like how in this show it satirizes our real world. So there will be times when the show will sprinkle in kind of events or moments that have happened in real life, but they won't really call that much attention to them. So I don't remember if this was the first or second episode, but there's a point where there's a interview with a superhero on like on the news, just in the television in the background, and the tagline is Second Amendment rights question mark, and you have a superhero saying, well, yes, gun violence is absolutely terrible, and I hate the fact that all these people in the mall got hurt, but if everybody had a gun, then maybe I wouldn't have to save as many people. And then it just cuts away, and then it's just like they just go on with the scene. But that's what the show tries to do. Like, it sprinkles in these little political like moments from anything, really. This would just happen to be about gun violence, but it puts them in the show, calling attention to them, but not like putting a focus on it, which is almost making it so that it almost feels like the show is just saying, you see, this is ridiculous, because it seems ridiculous in this television show, but this stuff is actually happening in your real world.
Yeah, and there's also that scene where they go to this like underground like club, and then there's like they see this guy who is doing like homosexual stuff, and then Huey's like, wait, isn't that the Christian spokesperson guy? And I was like, yeah, and I was like, okay, that's kind of like very bold to put something like that there. But then at the same time, it's like stuff like that does happen. Like, we had that whole thing with the archdiocese, and like the boys and the altar boys and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like you just never know, but it's not completely far off. But I do remember that he comes back. So that's also one of the things that like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of plants. So it's kind of fun watching it back again, because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. I remember seeing this, but I didn't remember that I saw this when I saw it come back.
When you saw it, because you didn't know that it was, you didn't know the context that it would be in later.
Yeah. But yeah, but it does feel like a very balanced show, because it is very dark. And if you're gonna have a show that dark, because like, I mean, Homelander basically murders a boy, a whole family on a plane, for motives unknown. I think we know why. It's because he has some kind of obsession with the leader, or like the woman who's running Vought. But and like that guy, kind of threatened her, so he basically murdered him and his entire family. And I was like, geez, that's really dark. And the way they did it was like, so, I mean, just the way that they put that scene together was pretty awesome, because like his eyes just turn red, and then you see like the plane down in flames, like falling down in flames. So it's like they don't actually show him doing it, but he did because of his eyes. And then you see the plane going down and it's on fire, so you know that he did that. But anyways, I just wanted to say, because I just wanted to go back to it really quick, about the butcher jokes with in the store. He basically, like, he's in the middle of fighting Translucent, and he was like, "You're an idiot. Translucent doesn't mean invisible. It means it means semi-visible." And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. I thought that was a good name, but now I don't.
No, it's. I remember seeing it and being like, "This is a dumb name," and I was so happy that the show called attention to it. It's like this name isn't even like accurate. Oh man, so good. But no, that was the other thing about the Homelander scene is that like, remember, in the first episode, they try to go out of their way to make sure that you don't know that he's just as much a jerk as everybody else. Like you see some of the other characters, and they come across like jerks. But even when Huey's asking about Homelander, Butcher lies and says, "Oh, Homelander's he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he's as squeaky clean as they come." And then like every time you see him, he's always like nice. When they have that little meeting, he's talking about, "Hey, you know what's Starlight gonna think if we're up here talking about our numbers? I want to hear about who you saved today," and blah 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 blah. And so they make him look like a really stand-up guy. So that's why that ending scene there where he murders the family is supposed to come as a, oh no, he's just as bad as everybody else. So then that's
If
the first
not
time you see him
worse.
do something evil. But he's
He's
worse.
actually the worst, yeah. And
And
they
he
had
come
the
to
whole thing with the Deep and Starlight when they're in that like war room, I guess basically. And it like they don't show it, but they imply it that basically he blackmailed her into performing sexual acts, which
mhm,
I was like, whoa, this show went there.
right
And it
there.
was gross. It was really gross. But, like, I think it just kind of goes to show, like, how they're really painting, like, fame and heroism as, like, this glamorous thing. And that's what superhero movies and shows do, but in reality people like real life heroes, I guess, or like people who we think are, or like people that we idolize, I guess is a better way to say, are not always good people. And like the things that they experience we don't get to see. We don't get to
Yeah.
see this kind of stuff happen, but it happens all the time. Same thing with like um with the company trying to cover up Robin's death. We don't get to see that. Like if that something like that happens in real life, we don't get to know because
Yeah.
these kind of cover-ups happen, and it's really hard to get these things out. And like if you think about the things that actually happen in real life that are coming out now, like the whole Cosby thing and like Kevin Spacey and stuff like that, like it's all coming out now, but the reality is we went for decades not knowing any
Without
of it because
knowing.
of all the cover-ups.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And that's another way like the show kind of portrays this world as a believable one. And the other thing the show does, you find this out later as you keep watching, is just that like it shows so even though these are terrible people, it doesn't just paint them as only evil and that's it. Like outside of Homelander, who also has like a couple of things going on, everybody is shown in different lights. Like the Deep they show in a scene where he's talking to Homelander, and you basically see that he's afraid of Homelander, and you start to realize that everybody, including the other heroes, are afraid of Homelander. So A Train, the Deep, even though they do terrible things, there's still moments where you see, oh, they're not as hot as they pretend to be because they are still terrified of this one person. And so like I like the fact that the show does that as well. So like you get to really paint a broad picture of who these people are at different points and what makes them vulnerable, what they do care about. And that's what makes watching their journeys, even though they do despicable things, so interesting to follow because of the fact that they themselves become interesting.
Yeah, and down the line, I know we get to see more of these so-called heroes, and like first they're kind of painted in a good image, and then they turn they're shown in a bad image, and then like later on we kind of get to get in really deep with what each of them are having to cope with. Like Maeve had it difficult being like the only female, and she's kind of forced to do things. And the Deep is also going through the same thing. Like he was like teased as a child, and like people, because he has gills on his body.
Right.
So like they're all going through things. They just put up this front to show, like, to come off as though nothing is really bothering them, but deep down inside, basically all of them are going through something, and they're all pretty much stuck where they are, and they can't get out of it.
Right. Yeah, they're stuck, and with the amount of fame that they have, they're afraid to lose it. So everything is about points and approval ratings and doing whatever you can to stay on top, because and that leads into like A-Train's whole thing eventually, right? He wants to always be the fastest man alive, and he's afraid that he won't be, which is why he takes drugs. And he does, because he feels like if he loses, then he'll lose his spot on the team, and then he'll lose his endorsements, and he'll lose his money, and then that'll be it. So like, it almost feels like how Shonen Jump comics felt like when we were reading them, or when you hear about how they're handled in Japan, where they have like the ratings every month, and the comics are trying to keep up their ratings, and if you don't keep up your ratings and you keep falling, then eventually you can get canceled, and then that's the end of your thing. That's what it feels like for this show. These heroes have to keep performing, or they'll lose everything. And so it's like, man, you've made it, but have you really made it? Are you actually happy? And I think that's also why we have the character of Starlight, because you get to see what that looks like from somebody who was looking at it from the outside thinking, oh, this is glamorous and great, and then gets there and is like, oh, this isn't at all what I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and her mom actually also is another huge thing that's affecting her, and it hits on another issue that is a real life thing, which is parents who are trying to control their kids. Yeah. And that's basically what her mom does, and she's kind of manipulative and kind of sucks. And Starlight, I guess, like, she has always seen her mom as someone that has supported her, but really is the opposite, that she was supporting her mom by doing everything that her mom wanted so that her mom could be happy and comfortable, but it wasn't really ever for her. And when she finds that out, she realizes that she can't even, like, the one person that she thought she could rely on for comfort and support is not her mom.
No, especially because, this is all season 1 stuff. When near the end of the season, you find out that these kids were given, like, they were approached by Vought when they were, like, basically in utero, or maybe when they were just born. And basically her mom agreed to let them give her daughter an experimental drug. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh wow, you wanted money so bad that you had these people use an experimental drug on your daughter. Mm-hmm. And that could have turned bad. It worked out for Starlight, but it might not have. So yeah, it's crazy, but it's a good show.
It's a good show. It is pretty dark. And I just remembered what Maeve's issue was. I think she's homosexual, and she has to, like, hide it because she's supposed to be like an item with Homelander because of, like, the image, and so she can't really be who she wants to be, and she can't really have a life of her own because she has to hide that for the image of the team and everything. And, like, leaving the Seven would mean sacrificing her career so she could be with someone who she loves. So she has to choose between love and money, and she picks money.
Big money, a comfortable life. It kind of almost feels like they hold their dreams hostage, right? They hold their dreams hostage, and it feels very reminiscent of how it could very well be in the idol industry, where you have people who literally can't have a boyfriend or can't verbalize that they are seeing somebody because everyone has to look at them as pure and single and possibly attainable. And if you don't get with the program, you can go and live your own life, but you won't be able to make the money that you were making, and you won't have the fame that came from where you were before. So Bot is very much like that. These superheroes are basically rock stars. And yeah, it's not all glamorous. So I very much enjoy the show, and the season 3 has started, so I'm definitely excited to continue going down the journey to see where this story goes. And in many ways, I heard that people who have read the comics like the show more than the comics because they think that even though the show has made changes, they think the changes are better off. The show is better off for those changes.
Okay, that's usually not the case, but that's good to know. If you haven't seen the show, I promise you, I know it does sound very dark the way we're talking about it. It is. It is a very dark show. It does take a lot to stomach it, but it is a very good show. And it's, like Chris said, it's a satire, but it's also funny. It has its funny moments. But I think that the characters are all very relatable, except for Homelander. But but they're all very relatable, and I think that's kind of why it's so easy to watch, especially like the more that you learn about all of the characters that we meet, and it gets very exciting too, and you're gonna meet more people that you're gonna get attached to as well. So I definitely highly recommend watching this show. It's definitely at the top of my list for like favorite shows ever.
Quick shout out for Kimiko, because Kimiko's amazing. We love Kimiko. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest before we get out of here?
No, we didn't really get to talk about Huey too much, but we can do that after the show.
Yeah, so if you guys want to hear us talk more about this and other things, you guys can check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. We'd love to see you guys over there. We talk about more things that we weren't able to talk about during our YouTube recordings, and then we also just have some fun and just kick it. So, come by, say hi, give us a follow. And also, have you guys seen The Boys? Are you watching the latest season? Are you up to date? Is it too dark for you, or is it just the right amount of like darkness and humor and action? What have you thought about it? Comment below, let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.